Okay, so we've got a ton of stuff here about credit repair, articles, forum threads, even some personal notes. It seems like you're really trying to figure this whole credit repair thing out. And honestly, I get it. It's one of those things that feels kind of mysterious.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of promises of quick fixes, but also, a healthy dose of skepticism.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
I think it's interesting how credit repair really taps into that very human desire to kind of want to erase past mistakes,
Yeah,
especially when those mistakes have, a very real impact on your financial life.
absolutely. So, for anyone listening who's maybe not super familiar with this whole world, can you give us a clear definition of like what credit repair services actually are?
Yeah. So basically, think of them as companies that step in to try and improve your credit score. And they do this mainly by disputing anything on your credit reports that seems inaccurate or negative. So they're going after errors, things that shouldn't be there. Basically, anything they can challenge to, potentially give your score a boost.
So they're like fighting for your credit rights or something?
Yeah, you can think of it that way.
Okay, but how much power do they actually have? Like, can they really just wipe away all of my past financial blunders?
Well, that's where the reality versus the marketing hype gets a little blurry. They're not miracle workers. They can't just make legitimate debt disappear.
Okay, so what can they do?
They can be helpful when it comes to disputing errors.
Mhm.
So let's say a late payment shows up on your report, but you paid on time. Or maybe there's an account you never even opened. That's where a credit repair company might come in handy. They gather evidence and contact the credit bureaus. Those are the big three we always hear about: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And they basically push to get those errors removed. And the good news is, if those bureaus can't actually verify that negative information, they have to remove it.
Oh, wow. So it's like they're legally obligated to remove it if they can't prove it.
Exactly. It's the law.
Okay, so that makes sense. But what about things that are accurate? Like, I'm just going to be honest here. I have definitely missed a payment or two. Hypothetically, of course. Can a credit repair company make those go away too?
Well, unfortunately, no. That's where their limitations come in. They can't remove accurate negative information. No matter how persuasive they are, they can't rewrite history. So those late payments, a bankruptcy from a tough time, those are all part of your financial history, and the credit bureaus are obligated to keep them on your report for a certain amount of time,
Okay, so there's no escaping the consequences of our actions.
pretty much.
Fair enough. So let's say I'm kind of intrigued by this whole credit repair thing, but I'm still a little bit wary. Can you walk me through how these companies actually work? Like, what's the process?
Sure. So most companies start with what they call a credit review. They pull your credit reports from all three bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and they kind of comb through them looking for anything that they could potentially dispute. That's their starting point.
So they're like credit detectives searching for clues.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what happens after the review?
Well, then comes the actual dispute process, which can be pretty complex. They handle all the paperwork, the back and forth with the bureaus trying to get those negative marks removed or at least corrected. And even when you're doing it yourself, this could be super time consuming. So that's one of the main reasons why people turn to these companies. They kind of take on that hassle for you.
So they're like professional paperwork warriors.
That's a good way to put it.
Sounds tempting, especially for someone who hates paperwork, but there's got to be a catch, right? I mean, this is a service, so how much does it actually cost?
That's where things get a little bit tricky and potentially risky. The fees can vary a lot. Some charge a monthly fee, which can be anywhere from like $50 to $150 a month.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it could be a pretty significant chunk of change. Others use a paper deletion model, meaning you only pay for each negative item they actually successfully remove from your report.
Okay, so we're talking about potentially a pretty big investment. But before we get too deep into that, I have a question that's been bugging me.
Okay, what is it?
Couldn't we just do this ourselves? Like, is it really that complicated to dispute errors on our own?
You absolutely can, and honestly, you should at least consider it. It's actually your right under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is also known as the FCRA. This law basically gives you the power to dispute any information on your credit report that you believe is inaccurate.
Okay, so we have the power.
You do.
What exactly does doing it ourselves look like?
Well, it's not as daunting as it might sound. You can file disputes online with each of the bureaus, or you can do it the old school way and mail in a letter. And there are even templates online that can guide you through the process.
Oh, that's good to know. But I'm not going to lie, the idea of like going head to head with credit bureaus can be a little bit intimidating. Are there any resources out there to help people like me who are maybe a little scared to do this?
Absolutely. The Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, has a website with tons of information about your credit rights and how to dispute errors. They even have sample dispute letters you can use. And you can also find helpful resources on the websites of the credit bureaus themselves.
Okay, so we've got the DIY option on the table, but let's be real here. There's a reason why credit repair companies exist, and it's not just because people hate paperwork. There are some legitimate concerns about scams and companies that maybe don't have your best interests at heart. What are some red flags to watch out for, especially in this industry?
Yeah, you're absolutely right to be cautious. One major red flag is any company that demands payment up front before they actually provide any services. That's actually illegal under the Credit Repair Organizations Act, also known as CROA. This act was specifically designed to protect consumers from, shady credit repair practices.
Wow. So if they ask for money up front, that's like a huge no-no.
Yeah, basically.
What other warning signs should we be aware of?
Another big one is any company that makes like outrageous promises. So if they're guaranteeing they can remove accurate negative items or boost your score by some specific number of points within a certain time frame, run away.
Yeah, that sounds way too good to be true.
Exactly. No one can guarantee those kinds of results, especially when it comes to your credit history.
So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly.
That's a good rule of thumb for life in general.
Pretty much.
Okay, what else?
Lack of transparency is another big warning sign. Reputable companies should be totally upfront about their process, their fees, how long it might take to see results, and what happens if they're not successful. They should also give you a detailed contract that outlines everything in writing. So if a company is vague about their services or refuses to answer your questions, clearly it's a sign they might be hiding something.
So we're looking for honesty, transparency, and a clear plan of action.
Exactly.
Okay, what about those companies that talk about creating a new credit identity or using like an employer identification number or EIN to somehow start fresh? Are those legit options or should we be wary of those too?
Those fall squarely into the run for the hills category. Creating a new credit identity is not only misleading, but it's also illegal. Trying to hide from your past financial mistakes is never a good idea, and it can actually land you in some serious legal trouble.
Yikes. Okay, so we've got a good sense of what to watch out for, but let's say you've done your research, you found a company that seems pretty legit, and you're ready to go for it. What are some concrete steps to protect yourself even further?
Well, research is key. Don't just take their word for it. Check online reviews, look at their rating with the Better Business Bureau, the BBB, and see if there are any complaints filed against them with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB. These organizations are dedicated to protecting consumers and holding businesses accountable.
So it's like doing a background check on the company before you trust them with your sensitive financial info.
Exactly.
What else?
Make sure you understand your rights under the Credit Repair Organizations Act, the CRA we talked about earlier. This law gives you important protections like the right to a written contract, a 3-day cancellation period, and most importantly, the right not to be charged for services until they've actually been completed.
Oh, that's reassuring to know. So even if you sign up with a credit repair company, you're not completely locked in.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
still have options.
What else should we do?
Don't be afraid to ask tough questions. Get specific about what they do, how their fees work, the expected time frame for results, and what happens if they're not able to remove any items from your report. A reputable company will be happy to answer your questions openly and honestly.
Solid advice. So it sounds like credit repair services might not be the be-all, end-all solution they're sometimes made out to be. Are there other, maybe more empowering ways to improve our credit scores? What are some alternatives we should consider?
You're absolutely right. There are a number of alternatives that can be just as effective, if not more so, than hiring a credit repair company. And the best part is they put you in control of your own financial destiny.
I like the sound of that. What are some of these empowering options?
Well, first and foremost, remember the power of DIY credit repair. We talked about how you have the right to dispute errors yourself, and it's totally free. So take the time to review your credit reports, familiarize yourself with the process, and don't be afraid to take action.
Go Team DIY.
Right.
What else?
Another fantastic resource is nonprofit credit counseling agencies. These agencies are like financial superheroes, offering a wealth of services to help you get a handle on your money. They can help you create a budget, manage your debt, and even negotiate with creditors on your behalf. And because they're nonprofits, their services are often low cost or even free.
Okay, so if you're feeling overwhelmed or need some extra support, these nonprofit credit counseling agencies can be like a lifeline.
Absolutely.
What other alternatives are out there?
You could consider using credit monitoring services. These services keep a constant eye on your credit report, and alert you to any changes, both positive and negative. This can help you catch potential errors early on, stay informed about your credit score, and take action if necessary. And here's a bonus. A lot of credit card companies offer free credit monitoring as a perk to their customers.
Oh, wow. So you can keep tabs on your credit without breaking the bank. That's awesome. But let's be real for a second. Fixing our credit can feel like such a long and arduous process.
Yeah.
Are there any quick wins, any small steps we can take today to start moving in the right direction?
Absolutely. Even small changes can have a ripple effect on your credit score over time. One of the most impactful things you can do is simply make sure you're paying all your bills on time every single time. It sounds basic, but it's one of the most heavily weighted factors in your credit score calculation.
It's amazing how much those little slip-ups can add up.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Late payments can stay on your report for years, dragging down your score. So set reminders, schedule automatic payments, whatever it takes to avoid those costly late fees and negative marks.
So important. What else can we do to give our credit score a boost?
Another key strategy is to keep your credit utilization low. That
Huh.
basically means using a small percentage of your available credit limit. Aim to keep your utilization below 30% and even lower if possible.
So no maxing out those credit cards no matter how tempting those sales might be. Got it. What about opening new credit accounts? Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
It depends. While having a mix of credit accounts can be beneficial for your score in the long run, opening too many new accounts in a short period of time can actually hurt your score. Each time you apply for credit, it triggers what's called a hard inquiry on your credit report, which can temporarily lower your score. So be strategic about new credit applications. Don't just apply for every credit card offer that comes your way.
Okay, so quality over quantity when it comes to credit accounts.
Yes,
Any other quick wins we should keep in mind?
absolutely. Make sure you're checking your credit report regularly, like we talked about. Take advantage of that free annual report from each of the credit bureaus. It's like a free financial checkup, and you should be doing it at least once a year to catch any errors or discrepancies.
It's like a financial self-care routine.
Exactly. And lastly, if you have any collection accounts, try to settle them. Even if you can't afford to pay the full amount right now, negotiating a settlement can often help improve your credit score. It shows creditors that you're taking steps to address your past debts and working towards financial stability.
So it's never too late to start taking control.
No.
Even if we've made mistakes in the past, there are steps we can take to rebuild and improve our financial standing.
That's exactly right. Your credit score is a reflection of your financial habits over time. So by adopting responsible habits and being proactive about managing your credit, you can create a brighter financial future for yourself.
This has been so insightful. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the ins and outs of credit repair services to empowering DIY strategies. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I have one final question for you.
Okay.
I kept coming across these stories of people who were tempted by those quick fix credit repair promises, but ultimately they found success through other means. It made me wonder, are there any real life examples, any inspiring stories you can share about people who took control of their credit and achieved their financial goals?
I'm so glad you asked. I actually have a story about a client that perfectly illustrates this.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear it.
So I had this client named Sarah who came to me feeling totally discouraged about her credit score. She had this dream of buying a house, but she felt like her past financial mistakes were holding her back. She was actually seriously considering hiring a credit repair company because she just felt so lost and overwhelmed.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that feeling. It's easy to think you need a professional to handle something as complicated as credit repair.
Exactly. But after talking with Sarah and going over her credit reports, I realized her situation wasn't as bad as she thought. She had a few late payments from a couple years ago and some medical debt that had gone to collections. But there weren't any major errors or inaccuracies on her reports.
So it was more about taking control and developing a plan than needing some kind of magic wand solution.
Exactly. We worked together to create a budget, prioritize her debt payments, and explore options for negotiating with her creditors. We also talked about the importance of building positive credit habits, like using her credit cards responsibly and making all her payments on time.
So it's a combination of addressing past mistakes and building new positive habits.
Exactly. And you know what? Sarah was incredibly dedicated. She stuck to her budget, made her payments on time, and even managed to settle her medical debt for a reduced amount. Within a year, her credit score had improved significantly, and she was finally able to qualify for a mortgage and buy her dream home.
That's amazing. It just shows that with the right knowledge, support, and a bit of determination, it's totally possible to turn things around and achieve those financial goals.
Absolutely. Sarah's story is a perfect example of why I'm so passionate about empowering people to take control of their credit. You don't always need a fancy credit repair company. Sometimes the most powerful tool is your own knowledge and commitment.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about the pros and cons of credit repair services. We've explored some empowering alternatives, and we've even heard a real life success story. But let's dive a bit deeper into those DIY strategies. What are some specific actions our listeners can take right now to start improving their credit scores?
Well, one of the most important things you can do is regularly review your credit reports. Remember, you're entitled to a free copy from each of the three major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, every 12 months through annualcreditreport.com.
That's a website worth bookmarking. It's like getting a free annual financial checkup.
Exactly. And when you review your reports, be on the lookout for anything that's inaccurate, outdated, or incomplete. This could include accounts you didn't open, late payments that were actually made on time, incorrect balances, or even debts that have already been paid off.
So it's like being your own credit detective, searching for clues to boost your score. What happens when we find errors? Do we just hope the credit bureaus will fix them automatically?
Don't count on it. You need to be proactive and file a formal dispute providing any supporting documentation you have.
Okay, so it's not enough to just spot the errors. We have to actually challenge them. What kind of documentation is helpful in these situations?
Well, think of anything that backs up your claim. For example, if you're disputing a late payment, you might include copies of canceled checks, bank statements, or correspondence from the creditor showing you made the payment on time. The more evidence you have, the stronger your case will be.
That makes sense. What about those of us who are feeling kind of overwhelmed by the whole credit thing and aren't sure where to start? Where can we go for some guidance and support?
Nonprofit credit counseling agencies can be a fantastic resource. They offer a wide range of services, including budget counseling, debt management plans, and educational workshops, all aimed at helping you get a handle on your finances and improve your credit over time.
It's like having a financial coach in your corner, cheering you on and helping you stay on track.
Exactly. And because they're nonprofit, their services are often low cost or even free, making them accessible to everyone. They're truly committed to helping people achieve financial well-being, not just profiting from their struggles.
I love that. It takes away that fear of being taken advantage of when you're already feeling vulnerable. Now, let's talk about a strategy that I think a lot of people overlook: credit monitoring. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. Credit monitoring services can be super helpful in your credit building journey. They basically act as your eyes and ears, keeping a constant watch on your credit report and alerting you to any changes, both positive and negative.
Oh, so it's like having an early warning system for your credit.
Exactly. That means you can catch potential errors early on, stay informed about your credit score, and take action if necessary to protect your credit health.
That sounds super helpful.
It is.
And the best part is, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of credit card companies and financial institutions offer free credit monitoring as a benefit to their customers. So it's definitely worth checking to see if yours does. Free is always a good thing. But let's be real for a second. Fixing our credit can feel like such a long and daunting process. Are there any quick wins, any small steps we can take today to start moving in the right direction?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even small changes can have a ripple effect on your credit score over time. One of the most impactful things you can do is simply make sure you're paying all your bills on time every single time. It seems basic, but it's one of the most heavily weighted factors in your credit score calculation.
It's amazing how much those little slip-ups can add up over time.
I know, right? Late payments can stay on your report for years, dragging down your score. So set reminders, schedule automatic payments, whatever it takes to avoid those costly late fees and negative marks.
So important. What else can we do to give our credit score a boost?
Another key strategy is to keep your credit utilization low. That means using a small percentage of your available credit limit. Aim to keep your utilization below 30% and even lower if possible.
So no maxing out those credit cards no matter how tempting those sales might be.
Right.
Got it. What about opening new credit accounts? Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
It depends. While having a mix of credit accounts can be beneficial for your credit score in the long run, opening too many new accounts in a short period of time can actually hurt your score. Each time you apply for credit, it triggers what's called a hard inquiry on your credit report, which can temporarily lower your score. So be strategic about new credit applications. Don't just apply for every credit card offer that comes your way.
That makes sense. Quality over quantity when it comes to credit accounts.
Yeah.
Any other quick wins we should keep in mind?
Make sure you're checking your credit report regularly, like we talked about. Take advantage of that free annual report from each of the credit bureaus. It's like a free financial checkup, and you should be doing it at least once a year to catch any errors or discrepancies.
It's like a financial self-care routine.
Exactly. And lastly, if you have any collection accounts, try to settle them. Even if you can't afford to pay the full amount right now, negotiating a settlement can often help improve your credit score. It shows creditors that you're taking steps to address your past debts and working towards financial stability.
So it's never too late to start taking control of your credit. Even if you've made mistakes in the past, there are concrete steps you can take to rebuild and improve your financial standing.
I couldn't agree more. Your credit score is a reflection of your financial habits over time. So by adopting responsible habits and being proactive about managing your credit, you can create a brighter financial future for yourself.
This has been so insightful. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the ins and outs of credit repair services to empowering DIY strategies and real-life success stories. But before we wrap up this episode, I have one final question for you.
I'm all ears.
In this world of instant gratification and quick fixes, what's the one piece of advice you would give to our listeners who are on a quest to improve their credit? What's the secret sauce, the golden nugget of wisdom that will set them on the path to success?
That's a great question. You know, if I had to boil it all down to one piece of advice, it would be this. Patience and consistency are like your superpowers. When it comes to building good credit, it's not a quick fix. It's not a sprint. It's more like a marathon. There's no magic button you can push, no overnight transformation.
Right.
It's about establishing those responsible habits and sticking with them over time.
Yeah, it's like building a house brick by brick. You can't just skip ahead to the finished product. It takes time and effort to create something really strong and lasting.
Exactly. And remember, everyone's credit journey is different. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. So celebrate your progress, no matter how small it might seem. And don't get discouraged by setbacks.
Yeah,
They're just a natural part of the process.
that's so true. It's easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to others. But when it comes to credit, we all have our own starting point and our own pace.
Absolutely. And here's something that might surprise you. One of the most powerful tools you have is actually pretty simple communication.
Communication. Really, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, it's often overlooked, but it can make a huge difference. If you're struggling to make ends meet, reach out to your creditors. Explain your situation. A lot of creditors are willing to work with you to create a payment plan, or maybe even temporarily suspend late fees if you're going through a rough patch.
Oh, wow. So don't suffer in silence. Pick up the phone, send an email. You might be surprised at how willing they are to help.
Exactly. And here's another communication tip. If you've settled a debt, make absolutely sure that it's accurately reflected on your credit report.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes, even after you've paid off a debt, it might still show up as outstanding or in collections, which can drag down your score.
Okay.
So follow up with your creditors and the credit bureaus to make sure everything's updated correctly.
That's such a good point. It's like making sure your financial record is accurate and up to date, just like you would with any other important document.
Exactly. Remember, your credit report is a powerful document. It can impact so many areas of your life, from renting an apartment to securing a loan to even landing a job. Taking the time to understand it, manage it proactively, and advocate for yourself can really make a world of difference.
Wow. This has been an incredible deep dive. It's been packed with insights and practical advice. As we wrap up, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation? What's the most important message you want to leave them with?
I want everyone listening to remember this. You are in control of your credit journey. It might not always be easy, but you have the power to make positive changes, build a healthy credit history, and achieve your financial goals. Don't be afraid to seek help when you need it. And remember, patience, persistence, and responsible financial habits are the keys to success.
Beautifully said. It's been a pleasure exploring the world of credit with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us.
The feeling is mutual. It's
Yeah.
always inspiring to see people taking charge of their financial well-being.
And to all our amazing listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge and motivation to take control of your credit and create a brighter financial future for yourselves. Remember, knowledge is power, and now you have the power to make informed decisions and turn your financial dreams into reality. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time.